Hey, everybody, welcome to the Turbonomic Labs for this fine day in January. Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome aboard. My name is Eric Wright. I'm going to be your host today. We're going to do some fun stuff around AWS. This has been one of those neat things that came up as a part of AWS reInvent 2020. But before we get there, let's just recap on where we are, where we're at, where we're going, and talk really quickly about what we're doing here at Turbonomic Labs. So again, if you're brand new to the session, my name is Eric Wright. I'm the technology evangelist here at Turbonomic, and we've got kind of two streams that we run around Turbonomic Labs. If you want to find out more, you can always go to turbonomiclabs.com or go to turbonomic.com/labs/live. And that shows you all of the different episodes that are coming up. What we've really enjoyed being able to do is to bring really great open technology sessions, which we do on Thursdays. So it's all about any kind of technology. It could be open source, it could be any cloud, could be whatever. Stuff that matters to you. These are use cases that I've bumped into in my own career and I continue to bump into in our customer field and in my peer community. So this is fun stuff. And then the other side of is we have Turbo Tuesdays, where we highlight Turbonomic specific platform. This is a deep dive where we can really get in, just jump right to the demo, show exactly how to get things done. And we're also going to highlight a lot of really, really cool things that are coming up in our partner community. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll bring up something here. If we take a look, and we'll bring up the website because it's better to do this live.com/labs/live. Very easy. Uh, as you may know, we are partners with Cisco, where they have an OEM platform that we offer called CWAM, as well as a brand new general availability platform called IWO, or Intersite Workload Optimizer. So we're going to do a deep dive into IWO with Sean McEwen, who's from Cisco. He's such a fantastic human. I love working with Sean. He's great to present with. We're going to just jump right in, see how IWO works, how you get it turned on, how to use it, what it looks like. It's part of the Intersite platform and the overall family. So it's really cool. Completely SaaS, zero touch implementation. Gotta love it. So we're going to go through. We'll dive into IWO, what it looks like, how it works, and how it relates to your, whether it's Cisco or non-Cisco related gear. So that's going to be coming up on the 19th of January. Today, we're going to talk about exploring macOS on EC2, which is going to be just a fun one. When did you ever think you could do that? And we're also, for the folks that are keen on Kubernetes, we're going to jump into IKS, or Intersite Kubernetes Services. That's going to be coming up again later this month in January. So do tune in. You can get signed up. You can go, if you go to Turbonomic or youtube.com/Turbonomic, you can actually find the upcoming streams when they're scheduled. You can get notifications for them. And also on the practitioner side, in a couple of weeks, we're going to do a getting started with machine learning, taking a look at a couple of different ways that you can sort of build a really quick machine learning use case and something you can dabble with. Because what I find often, and when I talk to folks in the field, is a sort of lack of comfort when it comes to anything more than just saying what ML means. Like even people don't know how it can impact and what are the use cases you can use it for. So we'll cover a couple of fun ones and hopefully get you started on your journey towards AI and machine learning. But today, let's just jump right in and get started. We saw, as part of AWS reInvent 2020, which was a 3-week-long event, completely online. So this was a wild change. We had John Meyer from AWS was on for a webinar. They know before you virtually go. They did so many great things. So please do follow John. He's _John, JONMYER, John Meyer. He's the AWS blogger, as you may know him already. So John's a fantastic follow, a person that just I've got a massive respect for in the industry. So we talked about all the different potential things that were going to come. We talked about some of the predictions, what the event would look like, and a whole bunch of stuff. It was a fire hose of announcements. But one of the ones that kind of jumped out to people, which nobody expected, was the announcement of macOS available on EC2. And people would say, well, wait a second, what does that actually mean? Like, what do you mean when you say EC2 and on demand? Like, it doesn't make any sense. How would I have Mac OS when I don't have Mac hardware? Well, this is the cool thing. They actually did it as Mac hardware. So you are launching a dedicated Mac Mini, your very own Mac Mini, without having to buy one. You can deploy it on demand in AWS, in EC2, and then you can launch your EC2 virtual Mac OS instances on top of your Mac Mini hardware. Really cool, right? And this is probably people thought it looked like VDI on an iPad. It looks like it's a really nifty thing, but what's the use case? Well, the use case is people use this. If you're doing software testing, if you're doing different things where you use Mac OS, you want to be able to have a workspaces style delivery where you need a dedicated machine to run stuff, and you don't want to buy a Mac Mini and keep it on the shelf all the time. Well, you can actually get them and they're available on demand. So there's a couple of caveats, and we'll go through it as we actually go through the wizard. So let's just jump right in. The example use case they gave was actually a film company, and they use it for rendering. So really cool that they could actually use this. They could spin up a bunch of rendering instances, do their sort of batch tasks, and it could then spin them down when they don't need them. So because they're not rendering 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So why would you want to have 1,000 Mac Minis sitting in a closet, powered on or even powered off? Even worse, and you've already paid for them. So why not get it on demand and leverage that elastic capability? Never thought I'd use the word elastic and Apple in the same sentence. So it's pretty cool. So I've already logged into AWS. We're just going to get right to where the fun is. I'm going to show you what you need to do, and we're going to spin one up. So you go to EC2 as part of if you're going to have, this is the new EC2 experience, which is funny because it's new now, but it's probably going to be old later. The thing about AWS is they're really, really doing a lot of work to update and unify the consoles. So you're going to see some changes. The one thing you will also find is that the Mac Metal is offered in, I think, almost all the regions. However, not all availability zones, which is kind of a thing that I discovered the hard way. So I'm a longtime fan of WKRP in Cincinnati. So I launch all my good stuff in Ohio here. So shout out to the folks in Ohio. We've got a dedicated instance that's already running. I want to make sure that we've got everything needed for this. So we can take a look at one, but I'm going to launch a brand new one. So there's two ways you can start this. Number one, you can launch your dedicated instance to prepare for your virtual AMI, or the alternative is you can literally just run and go through the process of launching an instance. So if I look at my current instances and I say I want to launch one, this was neat because I actually followed it, and I posted up a quick YouTube on my personal channel when this became live, and it's amazing that the announcements come up, and there it was. So I can actually go through, and now I see Mac OS, Catalina, and Mojave. This is really neat too, because imagine if you wanted to test your software against multiple versions, or imagine that maybe I've got an old piece of software that only runs with Mojave or an older instance. I could actually take that AMI, I could create an image of it, and I could go bring it up, do some testing on it, and be able to have that. So the cool thing is that you can choose. We're going to go ahead and choose Catalina. Now, it's very easy to make your choice about what your instance family is. There's only one. You have to choose Mac Metal. That's right, it's Metal. And the cool thing is you've got 12 vCPUs, of course, because you're getting the hyper-threading off the physical host, 32 gigs of RAM, and it's EBS only. So this is really neat. You're not constrained by scale of storage. You can actually get higher throughput and larger base storage than you could on a physical Mac Mini, which is incredibly powerful, especially if you want to run shared storage infrastructure. And check that out, 25 gigabytes of network performance. So you are on a high speed, low latency connection into the other physical and virtual services inside AWS, and IPv6 support. So for my shout out for my friend Ed Horley. So we're going to take that. We're going to say launch a new instance. We're just going to launch one. You can do auto scaling. You can do all these other neat things. I'm going to choose my default VPC. We're not going to go into like best architecture designs. We just want to see what it looks like and how it works. We're going to take the defaults. We're going to say I'm going to have auto assign my public IP. I'm going to have no domain join. I'm going to default. You can say stop or terminate. And what I've got to do is go a little further down. Here it is. Okay, so right now it's going to say what host, because it knows I need a dedicated host to run on. And you look in the drop list and, oh, there's no host there. So luckily, there is an allocate new host. This will spin up a second tab, and we'll show you what it takes to run this. We're going to call this T-Lab Metal. You need to make sure you choose Mac 1 as your type. There was a funny thing that you'll notice that support multiple instance types is grayed out. And that is because when they first launch, you by default had this turned on and you would get an error. But you're only allowed to run one instance type on here because it has to be Mac OS. So they've smartly disabled it once you're in the Mac 1 selection automatically. So instant type, Mac1.metal, and then availability zone. So funny thing I discovered yesterday, it's not in every availability zone. Actually, let's see. Let's prove it. We're going to say we're going to launch one. We're going to call it T-Lab Metal. I'm going to assign an owner because it's always important that you make sure you know who owns what. So I do this as a point every time. I'm going to try and allocate this, and it should get angry at me because it says Mac Metal not supported in your requested availability zone, US East 2A. And of course, they're smart. They're actually very nice. They tell you go to 2B or 2C. So let's do that. 2B or not to be. Sorry, that's like a really bad Shakespeare dad joke there. Okay, so we've got a T-Lab Metal instance that's configured there. That's me, my Mac Metallica from last night. So I was just making sure that this would all work. Okay, so I go back over, still got the active tab. You've got a little refresh button there. Whee! Okay, cool. So we've got one that's available. So that's going to be our T-Lab Metal. It doesn't show you the name in here. Bit of a quirk that I wish they would have as part of the user experience, but at any rate, this is not the hill we want to die on right now. So by default, I'm gonna give it a specific set of storage. I could go and I can get high I/O. I could get all sorts of crazy stuff. I can even have magnetic storage. Let's just take the default tags again. Always add an owner tag if you can, or it's important that you make sure you use tags to identify particular workloads. Configure security group, very important. Now, I've already got one configured because I had a Mac Metal, and this is probably not the ideal situation, but let's do a new security group. So we're going to call it a Mac T-Lab for Turbo Labs. Now, you ideally want to isolate specific, like whether you want to get SSH or whatever you're going to get. Because I'm going shortest path first here, I'm going to say all traffic. I'm going to say just from my IP. So if you're trying to hack into this while we're doing this, no luck. You can't do it. So I'm going to review and launch. It's not eligible for free usage tier. Okay, let's talk really quickly for a second about the cost of running a Mac Mini. There's a caveat to the way you launch this. It's on demand. However, because it's a dedicated instance, it's a little different. Dedicated Mac Minis require a 24-hour cycle. So you can't just get it for an hour or 5 hours or 8 hours. You have to get it for 24 hours. That's the way that it works. So even though it's on demand, it's 24-hour cycles. So if you need it for 25 hours, you're getting it for 48. That's important to know. I'm not going to talk about, I won't even bother spinning up the cost. Like, it's nominal cost, but it's going to be 24 times that nominal per hour cost. So just be careful. If you think you're going to spin 20 of them up and then tear them down and then you're not getting charged, it's 20 times 24. So be careful with that. Okay. Now I've got an existing key pair here. Let's just make sure I get the right one. Mac Metal. There we go. I acknowledge that I've got the key. Always make sure you keep track of your keys. Coolio. Okay, so that's going to start launching. Now, here's the neat thing. We've launched it. We've set up our dedicated instance. So we've actually done two of the major things that we need to get done. However, you're not done yet. Because think about AWS and EC2. Well, how do you actually configure access to the machines? We're running Mac OS. Isn't the whole purpose that we want to be able to actually remotely connect to it and run it like a workspace style or a remote desktop? You may be able to do everything through batch and through SSH. However, let's assume that that's actually not the case. So there's a caveat. You need to use the VNC protocol, which screen sharing does. So if you actually have your screen sharing app, which is native to Mac OS, all you need is your host name or Apple ID. So you would think, all right, perfect. Let me just go in. I'm going to check it out. Look, it's already launched. Let's just shrink that down here so we can see we've got our metal machine is ready to go. It's got 12 vCPUs. So we go back to our EC2. And take a look at our running instances. So it gets a little confusing because you've got your hosts and then your running instance. Okay, so this is the one that's running. So it's got a public IP address. We're going to copy that because we're going to need it in a second. If you want to connect, this is the oddity. By default, there's an EC2 user, and it sends your credentials with it via SSH, so you don't need to know the password, but you're going to need to know the password. There is no session manager option for this because it's Mac OS, so it's going to tell you about how to use your SSH client. I've already done my chmod, so I've changed the ownership and permissions on my PEM file, so I did that in advance, assuming that you've done that already. So what we need to do is do three simple things. One, make sure that we have access to it, which we've done through a security group. Secondly, we're going to remotely connect via SSH in order to set the EC2 user password. Then we're going to turn on remote screen sharing because by default, it's turned off. Okay, so let's go ahead and because if you actually just tried it here, you could wait this out, but you'll see in a little bit that it's actually not going to work. Okay. So let's just, I'm a little bit lazy, so I'm going to grab this because it's already copied there. So we are going to now connect to here. Oh, look at that. Helps you in the right direction. Now let's just make sure it's going to work here. It may not be online yet. Okay. When in doubt, why wait it out? We're actually just going to jump right in and we'll grab the other one. Okay, it's still initializing. Takes it a while to warm up here. So we'll go through and we'll kind of cheat and we'll show you on one that's already going. So I'm going to grab this fella. So we SSH to our machine. And look at that. It's got a little apple. Very cute. AWS, Amazon EC2, macOS Catalina. So you are now in an SSH terminal to your machine. So we're going to set the EC2 user password. Now I had already set it. So just for funsies. We're going to set it again. If I typed it right. Looks like I didn't. Oh, there we go. We did. Okay, cool. So now we've set the EC2-user password. This is the default that's configured. And like I said, you don't have the credentials, so you have to set them. It only uses SSH as the way to authenticate and authorize you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over here and we have to turn on. So this is actually in the help files for it. It's easy to find if you go to the AWS docs on how to configure it. So you're going to run the kickstart, configure access on, and turn on privileges to all. So let's just go back in. Now, this is kind of funny because I did this for this test machine yesterday, but it'll give you the same stuff. It tells you, by the way, only allows screen sharing if enabled through system preferences. You don't have access to the system preferences. You can't physically get at the console, so that's why we do it remotely. So it turns on the ARD, it sets remote privileges, turns it back on, and now we should be good. So let's take a look at that particular machine. And we know it's got a DNS setting. The weird thing is the way that the screen sharing app works. It doesn't like the fully qualified DNS very well. So I'm just going to cheat and kind of get the public IP. Go to our screen sharing app, type in the IP address, and it's going to be EC2 dash user, as according to the documentation. The password you just set, your secure password. We can tell it to remember password if we want. It's up to you. And there we go. Holy moly. We're actually now running macOS live on an AWS physical Mac Mini sitting in somewhere in Ohio. I think that's pretty cool. And then we log in because, of course, this is just the authentication was to turn on screen sharing. And then we're going to log in. And from this point on, it's the same as a physical Mac Mini. You're literally logged into a physical machine, and you are responsible for all of the things that it does. And how is that for funny? You launch it immediately. This is like a Microsoft joke. Remember we used to launch Windows machines and they immediately had updates that were due? So this is kind of cool. So let's see later. All right, we're gonna do what we always do. We're gonna say, yeah, remind me tomorrow. But now what we've got is a fully operational Mac Mini running, and this is, if nothing, it has a cool factor that you can now test out running macOS software if you wanted to, and you don't need to go out and buy a piece of hardware or a MacBook in order to do it. So this is where the fun comes in. Now, what's the business use case, right? So the business use case is going to be, like I said, imagine that you've got some other software. If you wanted to go through and you wanted to kick the tires on something, you wanted to try older software, newer software, you can run this now as a completely standalone machine. I could run Lightroom. I could go in, I could edit all my stuff, and I could batch edit my things with Mac OS, and I don't have to worry about any of the other stuff that's required in order to go out and spend $2,000 on a piece of hardware when I could literally get this by the hour, or technically by the day. And from there, again, you just treat it, because now you're in screen share. You're effectively treating it like any other remote machine. So you've got to lock it, log it out. You're responsible for the security, of course, but it uses security groups. So pretty easy to manage. And then, like I said, now you're done. So we're going to say we're going to close our screen session. And I want to go through, and that particular instance, now I'm done with it. Life comes at you fast in the AWS world. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, what do I want to, I've got my I already changed my termination protection off, so we're good. Now we can stop it. This is the interesting thing, that all your data on ephemeral storage, of course. Now let's say terminate. I love how the wizard is completely different every time you do it. It is literally different than it was like a couple of hours ago. So now I'm shutting down my machine, RIP Mac Mini. But one more catch. You've only shut down the instance. You haven't reallocated or deallocated, as it were, your physical host. So be careful, because otherwise you're spinning up hourly costs still on your dedicated host machine. So what I'm going to do, because that was my older one, I'm going to go ahead and you have the option to release the host. Now you see what's happening here is it's saying can't do it, running instances. Fair enough. It was still running. Okay, should be clear now. One would hope. What's the problem when you're doing these things in real time? It's kind of funny that we've become sort of used to like, why does this take so long? Well, it takes so long, but the truth is it doesn't take long at all. Like, how long would it take you to buy a physical server and set it up? And shout out to GP on the feed there. I like that. I forgot to tell everybody, if you do have comments, you can throw them in along the way here. So I'm going to release my host. It's still angry. Okay. So we got to clearly wait a little bit of time because it's still in a pending state while it's making sure that all the running instances are clean. So this fella shows available. And it literally is just that simple. So in the course of a very short period of time, we've been able to set up a machine, configure all of your security, launch a Mac Mini, and then you're able to spin up macOS, set your password, log into it, and we did this in and out with a gross amount of explanation and talk track in 26 minutes. That's pretty fantastic if you ask me. So big shout out to all the folks at Amazon and AWS, of course, that are continuing to do so many great things. There was a lot more than just Mac OS on EC2 that was announced at reInvent 2020. You'll want to go back and check out all of the amazing updates, all the different services. But this was a fun thing that I thought would be interesting to try out so that you, if you wanted to kick the tires yourself on this service, you could do so. It's very rare that you get a chance to, fire up a Mac Mini. One thing I don't know is if you actually have physical sort of ILO remote lights out type of access to it. Be very interesting to see, because there are other ways that you can use Mac Minis if you want to run your own OS on it. So I don't know really where things would go there, but that's really not the use case that this would have. The option as well, you've got config recordings. You can create your own batch configurations. You can do updates to the AMIs. So just like everything else that's in AWS, you can store your own snapshots, push it out back onto another Mac Mini. I think that's a pretty amazing set of criteria, to be able to deal with a pure Apple hardware configuration. And this is different than like VMware Cloud and AWS or these other things. They are not really the same because what you've got. Sorry, I apologize if I'm looking up. It's because my comments are on a screen that's farther away from me. Look at that. There you go. I saw a Hacker News post where an AWS engineer had worked on the macOS hardware and says you don't pay for any allocated hosts that are in a pending state. Very cool. So big shout out. Thank you, Mr. Hughes, on that one. That's cool. And if you cycle the instances on and off when you're not using it, pay less than $25 a day. There you go. Pro tip. So if you want to be able to save yourself a couple of bucks, just keep on cycling those things, and then you may not be charged while they're pending. So that's pretty cool. But ultimately, what you can do now is you can spin this up, and if you go for the full hour, like I said, I think it's about $1 an hour. So thank you for the reminder on that one. But of course, check your pricing chart. This is I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a financier. I'm not going to advise you on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea to keep it running. But how cool is it that you can? So that is our talk for today. We've got a lot more great stuff that's coming up. Like I said, if you want to find out about some machine learning for you and I, this is regular person, normal human machine learning. This is not super crazy machine learning at that scale. I'm going to be doing some fun stuff. As always, go to turbonomiclabs.com. That'll take you. There's a bunch of stuff. We've got some other blogs that are going to be there. We've got a lot of stuff coming up in 2021. If you want to connect with me through any other means, Disco Posse is the easiest handle to remember. So you can find me all over the world. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. DMs are open. So please do reach out. And of course, you can also find me through Turbonomic. I'm eric.wright at turbonomic.com, where we do a ton of great stuff, which is where, like I said, if you want to jump in, in 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks if you're watching live. So on the 19th, we're going to be featuring the first view on Turbonomic Labs of Intersite Workload Optimizer. You're going to want to check that out because Sean McEwen's Amazing Human. You want to see how he can deliver a fantastic demo. We'll talk about why it's important, what's amazing about it, how it works, jump right into using it. So that'll be cool. And then we've got IKS coming up. We've got lots more stuff coming up on the open side. So as we head into 2021, we want to do more and more where we engage with you. And thank you to all the folks who continue to comment. This is fantastic to see lots of live folks that are jumping in. So shout out to all the live viewers. This was Mac Metal. My name is Eric Wright. Have yourself a great day.